If you think The Simpsons have got quite the knack for predicting the future, well, they've got nothing on the WWE. So let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 WWE Premonitions that came true. Number 10. CM Punk says that he'll walk out on the WWE. Now, CM Punk went on a tear immediately after his iconic pipe bomb promo in June 2011. From then on, fans were gripped by his rebellious spirit and loudly rooted for the fed-up voice of the voiceless whenever he appeared on screen. Buoyed by this support, Punk's words only got stronger and more provocative. Then, live on the 11th of July 2011 Raw, Punk and Vince McMahon worked a sit-down skit that thrashed out a new contract for the unruly star. There, Punk made several demands of the bosses and threatened to walk out on the WWE completely if he didn't get them. Hell, Punk fancied leaving the company anyway after beating John Cena at Money in the Bank. Less than 3 years later, Punk's fiery comments came true. Tired, disillusioned, and felt completely let down by the WWE, he walked into McMahon's office 24 hours after the 2014 Royal Rumble and told both he and Triple H that he was going home. In short, he predicted his own future. Number 9. Video games predicted ECW's comeback. WWE should have borrowed a lot more from THQ's SmackDown vs. Raw's series than they actually did. The developers were massive pro wrestling fans, and they blatantly reveled in the chance to pen their own storylines for each game's season or career mode. In 2005, for example, they predicted something so cool that it actually transpired that it would happen the very next year. THQ snuck in a sweet ECW angle into SmackDown vs. Raw 2006's main solo mode. In it, Rob Van Dam led a mini invasion of hardcore goodness onto WWE screens, and pitched a breakaway that would actually see ECW become a standalone brand next to Raw and SmackDown. And by June 2006, this happened in real life as well. WWE saw the success of the at the time one-off one-night stand pay-per-view in 2005 and 2006 and decided to bring ECW back full-time. Even more incredibly, they had Van Dam win the WWE title during the same period, and much of the booking harked back to what THQ had done in the game. Number 8. The Undertaker does what Vince tells him. So The Undertaker rarely broke character before his tell-all Last Ride docu-series on WWE Network that aired last year. In fact, Taker had only really shed his mystique on a handful of occasions. For example, most fans recall his worked shoot promo in 1999 before disappearing, but that was actually a repeat, because the dead man got all shooty on the 1st of June 1998 Raw first of all. Clad in decidedly un-Undertaker clothing, the legend said that he was sick of watching Vince McMahon exploit his family for ratings. Then he said that he'd always been a loyal trooper and willing to do what Vince had told him to do. This lengthy moan was designed to protest against an impending rematch with kayfabe brother Kane. And years later, in Last Ride, Taker's family life and story were exploited for views on the network. Further, the WWE lifer admitted in one episode that he still finds it hard to turn McMahon down. Basically, back in '98, The Undertaker was telling the truth about his own future. Number 7. Randy Orton puts gold before loyalty. Now, I'm pretty sure that few of you are going to thank me for reminding you of the awkward bout between Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 33. It just didn't work, did it? And ended up being a mid-card WWE title slog that did neither man any favors. But before all of that, though, the pair managed to do some pretty subtly brilliant storytelling. They even sowed the seeds for their recent Orton vs. The Fiend feud. And how did they do that? Well, on SmackDown, before their Mania 33 match was announced, Bray cut an otherwise unmemorable promo backstage, and behind him, Randy's eyes drifted down towards the title over his shoulder, telling the world that he was more obsessed with gold than friendship or loyalty. And that would become the story thread in 2017 and 2020 and probably beyond. Back then, Orton took the belt from Wyatt in Orlando, and today he wants to eliminate the threat of his Fiend from WWE's landscape so that he can continue to be the only snake or monster around. Randy never cared about alliances, only selfish ambition. Number 6. Randy Orton talks Edge's retirement. Well, here's another one from our Randall. Orton's genius ruse on the 30th of December 2019 lives long in the memory. The way that he teased retirement before blasting AJ Styles with an RKO was tremendous stuff. But you know what? Some of us might have forgotten what Randy spoke about before he hit that finisher out of nowhere, and it's worth reminding ourselves of. He talked about watching Edge go through hell in 2011 and have to retire before he was ready. And if you watch carefully, you'd even see Orton pause for a second so fans in Hartford heaped sympathy on the then retired rated R superstar. It was almost like he was salivating at the thought of torturing Edge's fan base even more. Of course, Edge returned at the 2020 Royal Rumble and went on to feud with his old tag team partner, and Randy foreshadowed a rivalry that he must have had some inkling might have happened months from that promo, because Edge was in talks with the WWE throughout the final quarter of that year. This was a masterful work, and it set up their bitter conflict brilliantly. Number 5. Steve Austin will do anything for the title. WWE's build towards WrestleMania X7 remains one of the best ever. The way they weaved pop culture phenomenons like Limp Bizkit's My Way into those sumptuous hype packages, and the blockbuster nature of the Rock vs. Steve Austin main event made sure that everything was perfect. But there was another story burning in the background, and it was almost hiding in plain sight. During a hard-hitting sit-down interview hosted by Jim Ross, Austin looked Rocky in the eye and told him that he'd do anything to become champion again. Come crunch time in Houston, Stone Cold unthinkably sided with Vince McMahon, turning heel in the process and capturing his 5th world title. Now, if fans are being honest with themselves, nobody saw that coming. Austin had caught fire again as an anti-hero babyface, won the 2001 Royal Rumble, and seemed destined to win the belt as a good guy. Nope, he'd actually already alerted everyone to what depths that he'd stooped to in order to win back his prize. Because remember, he'd do anything to become champion again. Number 4. Roman Reigns' is glare. So WWE may never replay this moment, but you know what, they bloody well should. At the hilariously titled Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view back in the summer of 2017, the then, air quotes, hero Roman Reigns met the monster among men Braun Strowman in a brawl-tastic ambulance match. And the stunt-heavy showdown ended when Reigns attempted vehicular homicide. Seriously, before trying to murder his enemy, Roman was shown to be peering into the ambulance's wing mirror and weighing up what he was about to do. There was a cold, malevolent look in his eyes. And the WWE cameras also lingered on that shot for a little longer than usual to sell the importance of his decision. That moment, that very moment, was an early glimpse into Roman's heel psyche. It came 3 years before his turn in 2020, but it told the story of a man who, like Austin before him, would do anything to be on top of the WWE mountain. This, my friend, was the tribal chief before that was even a thing. Number 3. Roman Reigns says that he'll be head of the table. So hands up who watches Main Event Weekly in 2021. Yeah, I didn't think there was that many, because the show is arguably the most skippable WWE product out there. Now, being fair, it was already in the peripherals by 2014. But you know what? Back in 2012, it received typical early support and then just faded into, I don't know, Heat, Superstars, and Metal levels of obscurity. Still, it did foresee the arrival of Roman Reigns as a badass heel. 7 years ago. Over 7 years ago, Reigns cut an in-ring promo with Renee Young and discussed Seth Rollins' betrayal of his Shield brethren. Within 20 seconds, Roman vowed to become WWE Champion and said that he'd take his rightful place at the head of the table. And did you spot anything here? That head of the table gimmick has become Reigns' go-to now that he's a heel. His promo was a killer one back then, but WWE decided to try and force him down the fans' throats as a heroic babyface that they could always believe in. They should have put all their might behind this instead. Number 2. MVP warns Drew McIntyre. At Elimination Chamber 2021, Bobby Lashley attacked Drew McIntyre following his grueling cage-based defense and left him wide open for the Miz's eventual Money in the Bank cash-in. Anyone confused by Lashley's sudden attack should now know that this wasn't actually that random, because MVP called it last year. On the 25th of May 2020 episode of Raw, Porter proclaimed that he would personally play a role in that outcome when Drew finally lost the WWE title. Later, at Chamber, he'd be shown conversing with The Miz backstage. This was a plan that the heel manager had hatched 9 months ago, which is actually pretty special. He decided to pull the trigger on it when the time was right. And don't forget that McIntyre had already spurned MVP's advances to become part of his stable back in February 2020 as well. His devious actions, including colluding with The Miz and setting Lashley on Drew, were pure revenge for that rejection and the Scotsman's Claymore kick. And number 1, Triple H telegraphs sagging ratings. Ooh boy, it's never good when wrestling companies rubbish fan criticism as senseless, thick whinging that should cease lest those viewers embarrass themselves further. That kind of mockery only takes the piss out of people that are caring about your product in the first place, and it's likely to turn those folks away. But in July 2014, Triple H appeared on Raw and roasted a section of the fan base for disliking recent events. After riffing on those who use social media to vent their spleens, the game then closed with the immortal online, "Me and my friend Mark, we're gonna stop watching." Well, that, in retrospect, was a pretty regrettable line. WWE Raw averaged approximately 4 million viewers in July 2014. Over the next 5 years, that number would fall to around 1.5 million. Now, nobody is suggesting that Trips' words literally led to millions turning off and never tuning back in again, but he did accurately predict sagging interest. His promo loudly and rather arrogantly said that it didn't matter what unhappy customers thought, but maybe in retrospect, he probably should have cared a lot more. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 WWE premonitions that came true. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ0, or you can swing by my personal gaming channel. It's called Live and Let's Dice with a C, where I do loads of tabletop stuff and streaming as well on Wednesdays and Sundays. It'd be great to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. There is one thing that we all have control over, my friends, and that is our own futures. Do not let anything or anyone else put you down or make you feel small, because you, my friend, you are a massive ledge who deserves love, happiness, and success. I want you to go out there and absolutely smash your life goals today. Make sure that that premonition of you living a healthier and happier life comes true for you. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.